You don't have a boat. You don't have any rod and reels, no poles. So you got to be either camping or hunting. I said, a little of both. He said, what you hunting? You're out of state, Texas tags. I kind of smiled and I said, well, if I told you, you think I was crazy, and I prefer not to be thought of as crazy. And he leaned up where we were sitting around the fire and he said, well, let me ask you, have you ever heard of Bigfoot? In May of 2000, we were working under the name Texoma Bigfoot Research and Investigations. And my son, my partner, my best friend, John, and I went to an area on Broken Bow Lake. It's called Holley Creek. And with us we had Crystalline Rowland and Candace Rowland. These girls I've raised as my own daughters. I consider them stepdaughters. Along with us was the future father of two of my grandchildren, and I'll just call him Keith. We had driven to Holley Creek, and we had driven there in the rain. We set up camp in the rain. It took us most of the day to get a fire. Throughout the first night, we would hear vocalizations. We would hear heavy footsteps coming down the road and a huge splash in the water, so we assumed that something jumped in the water. We had people that moved in below us on another camping site that were there for a few days to fish. We woke up the morning after they had moved in, and all but one of their boats had been pushed far out into the lake. They had one boat to go retrieve them. We knew what we were dealing with, but we didn't want to seem too nosy or anything, and the fishermen pretty much avoided us. They were cordial enough to speak, but that was it. And one day they did speak to me about it. John and Keith had gone on a hike. The girls were in the tent, and one of the younger men came over and was speaking to me, and he said, are y'all just camping or hunting? Or said, I know you're not fishing. You don't have a boat, you don't have any rod and reels, no poles, so you got to be either camping or hunting. I said, a little of both. He said, what you hunting? You're out of state, Texas tags. I kind of smiled and I said, well, if I told you, you think I was crazy, and I prefer not to be thought of as crazy. And he leaned up where we were sitting around the fire and he said, well, let me ask you, have you ever heard of Bigfoot? I said, yeah. What do you know about Bigfoot? He said, I know they're over here. I know they're messing with us every time we come up here, but they've never done anything really bad, just annoying. And I said, I hunt Bigfoot. I'm David Holley, and I'm the founder of the Texoma Bigfoot Research and Investigation Group. And he said, now, my friends wouldn't like me to tell you what's going on up here. But you got a couple of girls. You got one guy that apparently he's smoking something he shouldn't be smoking that's bugging the hell out of these creatures. And I don't know many people that walk around in this park with a .357 Magnum strapped to their hip. But I guess the other young guy that looks more like you is your son. I said, yeah. He said, but I don't see you wearing a gun. I said, I carry a .45 automatic. It's in the tent. Good enough. Our last night up there, my oldest stepdaughter was experiencing her menstrual cycle, but had failed to tell us that. And we found this out days later. But during the night, I heard something walking up gravel behind our tent. And it started sniffing at the base of the tent. Now, it's not something walking on four legs like a bear. This was two-legged. Candace heard the sniffing. She'd heard the footsteps, and she was beginning to cry. She was really scared. I was scared. Didn't know what I really could do. And then I remembered two things. I had a walkie-talkie, and I had a son camped downhill from me with a .357 Magnum. Earlier that night, we had encountered on a trail a young Sasquatch who was very, very upset enough that his hair, like some chimps when they become agitated and other of the larger apes, spread out and looked like a mane. But we had let it alone and it escaped from other view, but apparently it hadn't left the area. When I got on the radio to call John to tell him to put the spotlight on the back of my tent, I told him that I thought I had a creature, a Bigfoot, behind my tent. The light come on, and I heard him say over the radio, "Dad, there's nothing there." Built the fire up, went back to bed. The guys in the fish camp below us had turned their lights out. Trying to doze off, we hear the footsteps again. Then I remembered a third thing. I had a .45 automatic under my pillow. As I'm laying there trying to work my hand under my pillow, I bring the .45 out. I see a face coming, pushing the wall of the tent, the base, heavy breathing, and I slapped at it with my left hand, and I hit something hard. I heard a grunt, and it disappeared. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I've really done it now. I see the flap of my tent start to rise, and I see a hand Now, I might call him a claw, but its hand, the thumb is not exactly like ours. It's offset just a little bit, and the nails are sharp enough that they could disembowel anything that they want to kill and eat. I chambered around in the 45 and the flap dropped. One thing went through my mind. It knows that I know it's there. I'm laying on my back. I know this thing is right outside. I can hear it breathing now. And I say, and these are the words that I said, I'm going to fire a round through the top of this tent, and I'm either going to hurt you or I'm going to make you extremely unhappy, and then you're going to make me extremely unhappy. By then, my stepdaughter's crying. We get on the radio again. John comes out with a rifle. He still doesn't see anything. The tent her sister and her future father of her children are in is right next to us. It hasn't even gone there. It's singled out our tent. We ended up vacating that tent and moving into John David's tent with him the rest of the night. And as we're getting into his tent and zipping everything up, we hear bam, 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 tree knocks just up the hill behind us. Can the hunter become the hunted? You betcha.